My name is Kerrie, and my goal is to inspire healing and meaning in all areas of life. In this podcast, we will dive deep into conversations. From heartbreak to freedom, we will explore different self-care modalities, learn to be the best expressions of ourselves, and to live with purpose. I'm here to offer my personal insights and to share my story in hopes that it will guide you on your path. This is Heal with Kerrie, a journey of self-discovery. My first psychic mediumship reading happened by accident, but it was one that changed my life. It came exactly at the right moment when I needed it the most. I thought I was attending a meditation class, not realizing that this group alternated between meditation and messages from spirit. That day, I received the most profound message that had me in tears. For the first time, I had felt like I was seen and heard. All these thoughts and emotions I had been hiding inside in me were finally out in the open. And from that moment on, I found myself on a spiritual path. And when I say spiritual, I don't mean religious. I mean staying connected to myself, following what my heart desires, and what feels true for me. It's staying curious, staying open, and trusting that there is something much greater out there. But here's the thing. For some reason, I felt this deep hesitation to share any of this. Why did I feel like I need to keep this a secret? Like, part of me felt like I was going to die if I told someone. Could it have been a past life wound? One where speaking this truth would have gotten me killed? Was it my throat chakra blocked? Did I not want people to see me differently? Or was it simply too new, too out there, and I was afraid of what would happen if I spoke up? So months went by and I started attending this mediumship circle, and I kept it completely to myself. I was convinced that if I told anyone, they would think that I was crazy. I had actually mentioned this to one of my friends, and they warned me to be careful because I might be joining a cult. So that definitely scared me, and no one else around me was talking about these kinds of experiences I was witnessing and having. But what I really wanted more than anything was for people to understand and believe in what I was starting to believe in. But I was terrified that if I spoke up, they'd look at me differently, or worse, think that I was going nuts. But at one point, I started to actually question my reality. I thought, how can everything line up this synchronistically? Am I imagining this? But the more experiences I had, the more the evidence piled up, and slowly the way I began to see the world began to change. The person I most wanted to tell was my partner at the time, and I was terrified. He was the most logical person I knew, and I knew it would sound strange coming from my mouth. I also had this deep-seated fear that he was going to tell me to stop going to these mediumship circles. And back then, I think I cared too much about how he thought about me and was so dependent on his approval. So as months went by, this started to eat away at me. Eventually, I knew that I had to say something, so I decided to rip the Band-Aid off and tell him. He didn't say much. He just listened and observed, and he didn't tell me not to go or anything really. He just let me be. In some ways, that was a relief, but in other ways, because he didn't believe what I was starting to believe, I started to feel alone on this journey. After the COVID lockdowns, I had to go back into the office, and I knew that the people around me would be different. So I had set an intention. I wanted to be surrounded by spiritual or open-minded people. I wanted to stop hiding this part of myself, and I wanted to share the magic I was having in my life. I remember in conversations, I would use astrology as my entry point. It felt like a safe way to test the waters. The more comfortable I became with the people around me, the more I began to open up. I would start to talk about energy, like we'll talk about our vibes, then we'll drift into Reiki and eventually into mediumship. And what I discovered completely surprised me. The people around me were far more open than I had expected. One colleague in particular shared a piece of advice that shifted my whole path. It was basically the missing piece of the puzzle in how I was able to manifest my perfect partner, the person I am with today. Others spoke openly about mediumship and animal communication. Someone actually knew a full-time psychic medium, and others understood energy in ways I hadn't anticipated. I was sitting in an office surrounded by people who were spiritually open. They didn't have to fully believe me, but for the first time, I felt more at home than I ever felt before. Around the same time, I was newly single, and my sister was trying to set me up with her friends. One of the men made a comment. He called one of the women he'd gone on a date with that crazy astrology girl. And that comment made me want to hide in the closet again. So when I met my now partner, I held back. I didn't want to be that crazy astrology girl. But I also knew deep down that whoever I chose to be with would have to love all of me, including the parts that seemed a little out there. So I came clean early. I told him about astrology. I let him see a little of who I was. As our relationship grew more serious, I knew I would eventually have to go deeper. He didn't know I had been part of a mediumship circle. He didn't really know what Reiki was, but we had a trip planned to BC. And while we were there, I introduced him to one of my longtime mentors, the Squamish medium, along with some of the other collective members I had become close to. He had met real people, good people, people with grounded and beautiful energy. I explained that we practice mediumship together. He didn't fully understand it, and that was okay. He didn't need to. At first, I thought other people had to believe me, but now I know it was never about belief. It was about whether someone else could sway me from my own truth, and whether I would still be respected, loved, and supported for who I am and what I believe. Last year, I fully stepped out of the spiritual closet. I showed up visibly in my community. I shared it on my personal social media, and I stopped treating this work like a secret. But before I could step out of the closet, I had to overcome a few things. My first step was one of the most nerve-wracking moments of all, filling out a medical form. Every new medical or wellness practitioner that I was seeing came with an intake form with one simple question that just left me stunned. What is your occupation? I was so used to writing graphic designer just because it seemed normal. I never fully committed myself to my spiritual work. But one day, I built up the courage and made a decision. I was going to let the universe know that I was all in. So for the first time in March of 2025, at the eye doctor, of all places, I nervously wrote down that my occupation was an intuitive energy healer. Part of me felt a little embarrassed, a little ashamed, but to be honest, underneath that, it felt like freedom. Like I had finally said it aloud, but with a pen in a waiting room saying, "This is who I am." And though it may seem like such a simple step, it was a heart-pumping moment. I felt like I was starting to really own my path, and with each step I was taking, I was healing parts of myself along the way and learning to stand strong in what I knew to be true. Then came the networking events, and I dreaded that question. So what do you do? Writing it down on paper was one thing, but now I had to say it aloud. I'm an intuitive energy healer. I remember stumbling over my words the first few times, so much so that I think I even forgot what I did. The words were struggling to come out. But here's what kept happening. The people who were drawn to my energy got it. They already knew about Reiki. They understood about energy work, and sometimes I'd find myself talking to someone who had experienced something they'd never told a single person before because they were too afraid no one would believe them. Every time that happened, I thought to myself, I'm going to build a community around this one day, and I still haven't done this, but it's definitely on my list. Over time, the awkwardness started to lessen. I stopped caring what others thought because I realized I'm not here to defend myself or prove anything. I'm simply here to make myself visible so that people who need me can find me. Then came a moment I had been quietly dreading, showing up in front of my family. I decided to offer tarot card readings at a community event that my whole family would be attending. Parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, cousins, you name it. By that point, I had been out of the spiritual closet in my community for a couple of months now. But this felt different. It's easier to tell a stranger because I have no strings attached to them, but my family has known me since I was born. They've watched me grow and evolve, and I didn't want to be a disappointment. Needless to say, I had done enough inner work that at this point, there was no hiding any of the things I was doing anymore. And their reaction? Basically, Kerrie does this now. And then moved on. Some understood, others didn't. No one made it weird. They just accepted it as part of who I am now. And honestly, that felt like it was one of my biggest milestones. And something I started to notice, tarot readings and energy healing has been showing up more in mainstream culture. For example, in movies, in conversations, in places where it once would have felt totally out of place. And I can see that the world has been shifting, and I know that I don't have to be afraid anymore. Back in the days, I probably would have had to watch out or I would have been hanged. But we've evolved away from that and people are much more open-minded. I know that there are people who genuinely struggle to come out of the spiritual closet because they've just been told this work is evil, that it's dangerous. And that fear is real. And I think most of us just don't want to be rejected by society. But I also know that the more of us who are visible, the safer it feels for the next person. A spiritual journey is deeply personal. It's about going to the beat of your own rhythm, following what feels right for you. We each have a different path, and we're meant to connect with different people, different ideas, and different practices. That's exactly why we need many voices out there, sharing many different experiences. So if you're still in the spiritual closet, it's okay. Come out when you feel safe. It might take some time. It might eat away at you and you can't share this part of yourself with the people you love, but you don't need everyone to fully understand. What matters is that you're accepted for who you are, even if you're not fully understood. I spent a long time hiding, but I'm not hiding anymore. And I hope by me sharing my story and my personal experiences of coming out of the spiritual closet helps to inspire you to take the next step. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope you found this episode insightful. If you feel called to, please share this podcast, subscribe to it, and leave a rating and review. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can email me at healwithcare@gmail.com or follow me on Instagram at healwithcare. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next episode.